the FOI bill, or an FOI bill was already passed in the 15th Congress by the Senate, except that the title was modified. FOI became POGI. Alam niyo ba kung ano yung POGI? People's Ownership of Government Information. That is the Senate version of the Freedom of Information Bill. But it did not become a law because it was not passed by the House of Representatives. Under our system of legislation, a proposed bill to become a law must be passed by both houses of Congress. Previously, Malacanang submitted to Congress its own preferred version of the FOI bill. By making such a submission, we already indicated our support for the Freedom of Information Bill because we stated in very clear terms what we believe would be the desirable features of Freedom of Information Bill. Despite the non-passage of a Freedom of Information Bill, I would like to invite you to examine the prevailing government environment. And I would like to ask you, my friends in media, in which administration did you ever witness every department of government, every national government agency, government-owned controlled corporation, government financial institution, have its own website? And the website contains not just background information about the office, but also the seal of transparency. What is the seal of transparency? As you are well aware, the government starting this year is implementing a performance-based bonus for employees. Employees of government agencies cannot get bonuses or cannot participate in incentives or get rewards for their performance if their office does not have a seal of transparency and if their office does not fulfill or comply with the tenets of transparency, disclosure, and public accountability, which are the essential hallmarks or elements of freedom of information. In other words, even without an FOI bill, your government is already actively practicing all of the principles of transparency, disclosure, and public accountability. For instance, even when it comes to procurement of office supplies, capital equipment, the agency cannot have a seal of transparency if it does not have a certification from PhilJEPS. What is PhilJEPS? PhilJEPS is the Philippine Government Electronic Procurement System. We are now doing our procurement electronically in order to minimize irregularities and anomalies. And we are following the procedures that are provided by PhilJEPS. And as I said, this is a requirement also for the seal of transparency and for the performance-based bonus. So I hope I have demonstrated to you that government is not just supportive, it is actively practicing the principles that are embodied in the freedom of information concept. But what about Congress itself? As I stated, it was only the Senate that was able to pass the version, its own version of FOI. The House was able to pass a committee report, but they did not have enough time to discuss it at plenary. If you will recall, natapos lang po nila yung committee report nila during the last few session days of Congress, where they were also preoccupied with passing other vital legislation like the Sin Tax Reform and the Reproductive Health Bill and the Responsible Parental Bill. So, hindi naman po nagkulang ang executive sa pagtataguyod nitong Freedom of Information Bill. nagkulang ho ng panahon ang ating mga congressmen and congresswomen to be able to discuss it fully. Marami nagsasabi, bakit hindi ginamit ni Pangulong Aquino yung kanyang political capital to influence the passage of the FOI? Let us put that in context. If you will recall, the President called the members of the House twice to Malacanang to support the discussions and voting on the proposed RH bill. He never used his office to influence them to vote in favor of the RH bill. Both proponents and opponents of RH were invited. Wala po siyang binanggit na kahit isang pangungusap na dapat iboto nila yung RH bill, because he wanted the congressmen and congresswomen to vote according to their conscience and to vote according to the desires of their constituents. So the same principle applies to the FOI bill. If you will recall also, the President certified as urgent the RH bill only to make sure that it can be voted upon on third reading without waiting for 5 session days. Kasi kung nag-intay pa po ng 5 session days, lalampas na doon sa deadline ng 15th Congress. And they will have to refile the bill in the new Congress, of the 16th Congress that began only Monday of this week. That was the only reason why the President certified it as urgent. So as you will see, the President is very judicious and circumspect in the use of presidential power. And he does not want to exercise it if there is no clear indication of the will of the people as expressed in the way that our senators and congressmen have voted. In the case of RH, the senators passed it, the congressmen approved it, even by a small margin in the second reading. That was the only time the President certified it as urgent to both houses, para po matapos na yung pagboto on third reading, so it could be enacted into law. So I hope I have sufficiently explained government's position on FOI. To summarize, number one, we have always supported the principles of freedom of information. Number two, even without an FOI law, government is actively practicing the principles of transparency, full disclosure, and public accountability that are the guiding principles of freedom of information. I hope I have sufficiently answered your question.